Welcome to the Circular Exchange, where leading industry voices come together to shape the future of recycling and the circular economy. My name is Alan Langdon, CEO of Circular Materials, and your podcast host. In each episode, we are bringing you real conversations with the people driving progress and innovation in recycling and extended producer responsibility across Canada. Together, we're exploring what it takes to build a system that works for both people and the planet. Today, we're diving into the importance of collaboration with municipalities and First Nations communities, a critical part of the successful and inclusive extended producer responsibility programs. To help us explore this topic, we're joined by local leaders from New Brunswick, where EPR launched almost 2 years ago in November 2023. My guests today are Daniel Jago, Green Communities Team Manager for the North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council, and Sebastian Hultberg, Director of Solid Waste Services at the Southeast Regional Service Commission. Each guest brings a unique perspective and valuable experience on how EPR is shaping local realities and how it's being received by communities. There's a lot to unpack, so let's jump in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. So thanks for joining us. Maybe if each of you could introduce yourselves and just give us a brief oversight in terms of what you're doing within your community as relates to recycling. And maybe Sebastian, I can ask you to go first.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alan. Sebastian Hultberg, I'm the Director for Eco360. We're the solid waste division of the Southeast Regional Service Commission. Essentially, we're a collaboration of the 12 municipalities and the rural districts here serving the Southeast New Brunswick. We do everything on site from landfilling, composting, and of course, recycling.
And Daniel, you're next.
Thanks for having me. My name is Daniel Jago. I'm a civil engineer managing the Green Communities team focused on waste management for the North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council, which is a not-for-profit organization that's a partnership of 7 Mi'kmaq member nations in New Brunswick. We provide access to bin programs, facilitating recycling, and providing promotion and education to our communities.
That's fantastic. So maybe I think as a starting point, maybe just talk about what did you know about EPR before it was introduced to your community? And what was your understanding when you started to learn about EPR? Maybe Daniel, we'll start with you.
So I had a basic understanding of EPR from having conversations with other waste management practitioners across the country where EPR had come into effect earlier. It was a basic understanding, basically shifting cost and responsibility onto the producer away from consumers and taxpayers. And it would ultimately, hopefully, lead to motivating producers to create consumer products and packaging that are more sustainable and easier to recycle.
It's actually a pretty good understanding, all things being equal. Sebastian, how about you? What was your thinking about EPR when you first started?
So actually, I grew up in Sweden, and EPR has been around for a long time, and I've seen firsthand how it can affect product design. So I was quite eager to see it being rolled out in this region.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's one of the key academics that first came forward with the whole concept of EPR actually came from Sweden. And there's a whole school of sustainability where EPR kind of sprung from, way back in the late 80s, early 90s. So now that we've launched in New Brunswick, EPR has been going, maybe share with us, what are some of the benefits your community's experienced in terms of EPR? Like, how do you think it's changed and what are the tangible ways you think it's impacted your community? Maybe Sebastian, you can start.
Yeah, I think obviously, like Daniel mentioned, it's by having an industry group being responsible, it really reduced the cost, which is a great win for the resident. And then, of course, in New Brunswick, we had sort of a mixed bag of various recycling programs in leading up to the implementation. So I think a big benefit of this new program was working towards a streamlined recycling program design.
The most immediate benefit that I've seen is that community members have noticed circular materials, promotional materials, and they're coming to us with questions and they're engaging in conversations about recycling. And that's not always typical. So having that happen regularly since the implementation and the transition started, that's been a great benefit for us. It opens up a lot of great engagement opportunities with our communities.
And, that's fantastic to hear, because I know that so much time and energy goes into the development of those materials. And, it's particularly rewarding. I think that, the take up of the program among First Nations communities in New Brunswick has been really heartening. I think we have almost all of the communities now are signed up and are participating in the program. And I think as we, continue to build out across the country, it'll be just such a key part of, the program going forward, is that relationship with First Nations. And, being able to provide the same level of service in these First Nations communities, particularly remote First Nations communities, that people are used to, being able to access in the big cities. And I think as we go forward, it'll be just so important to provide that kind of equity of service. And that's where I think, having this model of extended producer responsibility and being able to, deliver a kind of uniform service across New Brunswick. We're not all the way there, but certainly having all the First Nations participate in the program is a first step. And then hopefully eventually we'll have things like a uniform material list across the province that will make things even that much better in really providing that same level of service. I guess, and you've talked about it, Daniel, and maybe you want to expand on it. The other thing is, how are the residents, so you've talked about residents are really noticing the promotion education material. Is there any other ways where they've responded to EPR that you've seen so far?
It's been a positive response. I think maybe some people think it's too good to be true and are a little reticent to take it at face value, because it is producing so much benefit that people tend to wonder, what's the catch? What am I missing? Why is this?
They discount it like this can't be possible.
Right. I think that maybe some people are a little jaded with politics in general, but some of the political movement, some of the legislation changes are certainly producing tangible benefits, and seeing that is a big benefit and definitely what we strive for.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that in other launches across the country. Some communities were skeptical when we first came and said, we're here and we'd like to, work with you so that we can, have a partnership and take this cost obligation off you. And some communities, to your point, felt it was too good to be true. Sebastian, for you, what are how do you see your communities responding to EPR?
I think, as with any new program or change, there's always hesitancy. But I got to say, the transition's been very smooth from the residents' perspective. They haven't noticed much change. Communication's going well. So I think from the residents' perspective, I think they're seeing this as a smooth transition.
Has there any, Sebastian, is there anything that's been surprised you? Are there any things that have surprised you as we've gone through the transition, or things that surprised residents?
No, I think, to Daniel's point, it's for their perspective, is they're about to receive or are already receiving a service for free, essentially, which is great. And I got to say, a huge benefit is the rollout, not just to the single dwellers, but now the fact that multi-residential and schools are part of this program. That's a key improvement for us. Our region has undergone a tremendous growth the last couple of years, mainly in the multi-residential sector, and to now have that growing waste stream participating in the recycling, it's great. It's a huge diversion effort.
And maybe just to talk about that, because I think it's quite unique in New Brunswick, is that up until our program, multifamily buildings really didn't have access to recycling services in the traditional way. And so, Sebastian, for you guys, that's probably been a gap in delivery over the last few years. And, like, for example, how many multifamily buildings or how many multifamily units do you think would be in your region? And so, how many were there before, and what does it mean to close that gap in terms of providing service to those buildings and those residents?
Right. So I think we're pushing towards 20,000 units
Wow.
currently. Don't quote me on that number, but that's the ballpark. Yep. And we've tried to encourage participation in the past, but now with this program coming in, I believe it's that much easier for property owners to register and then to have that added benefit of having circular materials as the support, I think that will be we should see a big uptake here.
And I know we've seen some already. Do you think, are there still some building owners that have yet to sign on? Or do you think we've managed to capture most of the buildings already?
I think in our region, we're the second phase of the province's registration or rollout. So I believe that we still have quite a ways to go. But municipalities are also looking at potentially even mandating waste sorting in the multi-residential sector. So that together with this program, we'll see a great uptake, obviously, and that's going to follow example of other major cities in the province.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like, I think what we've tried to do is come up with a registration process that gives both the buildings and ourselves ample time to be able to put the services together. And, I don't know if you want to comment, but certainly I think one of the things we're hoping for is in other jurisdictions, we've seen significant issues in terms of things like contamination with multifamily buildings. So hoping to work with partners like, your regional commission to be able to get ahead of that and really work with residents to ensure we don't end up with those problems with contamination, because I think if you have excessive contamination, it creates challenges for you down the road. Any comment on that in terms of, multifamily buildings and getting at some of these issues around contamination?
I think information, education is key. And also it comes down to psychology and how you implement it. Not every building is the same. So really working with the property owners is, I think, the key.
Yeah. No, appreciate that's great. I guess as we, start to look to the future, what opportunities do you see for the future of EPR and recycling in your community? Where do you want to see EPR go? Maybe Daniel, I'll give you, Sebastian and I have been talking away. I'm going to give you a chance to get back in the conversation.
I would like to see an expansion of EPR into other stewardship programs that are currently funded either through taxpayers or directly by the consumer. Under those models, there's less motivation for the producers to make more sustainable products and packaging. And I think that's a critical component of EPR, is putting that impetus on the producers to make more sustainable products. Of course, the cost is borne differently, but that's the opportunity I'd like to see explored, is more products. I mean, there already are a lot of stewardship programs in New Brunswick, but like Sebastian had said, to streamline that and to bring them all into the same model where possible would be a great benefit.
So basically, you're so pleased with how EPR has gone for paper and packaging. You'd like to see the government move forward and implement more programs for other product categories and achieve hopefully similar results in those categories.
I would, yes. The benefits are there, and I think moving into more sectors and expanding what's delivered through EPR is going to be continue to produce positive benefits.
And how much are you aware of some of the work that we're doing in terms of managing flexibles? And I think, for us, I see the long-term, just to build on your point, the long-term benefit is not just collecting and recycling this material, but actually having the opportunity for the material to go back to producers. And I think it's important in two ways. One is that if the material could go back to producers, it'll help create a more sustainable pathway for recycled content and for increased recycled content. But to get to your point, Daniel, it'll also provide additional incentive for making changes to packaging, because if you want that recycled content, you'll have to ensure that you're making packaging in recyclable material to begin with. And ultimately, I think that's where we'd all like to be, is that, we've got a range of packaging materials that are all recyclable and then everything that go in the box. And then ultimately we can kind of create a more circular pathway where that packaging that the resident is putting in the box is coming back to them a few weeks or a few months later as recycled content in new packaging. Do you think as we start to talk about that more, my sense is that'll something that will resonate with residents and also provide greater motivation to residents to be able to want to get their packaging into their curbside box and make sure that it's clean and can be recycled. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think it's a motivator for sure. There are a lot of people who've been actively recycling and waiting for changes, waiting for more products to be recyclable or accepted in the province. And they're eager to see this transition happen, and seeing another transition that expands further, I think would be welcomed.
And do you think it would also, and I'll get to you, Sebastian, in a bit, and you can answer this as well, but maybe Daniel first, also get at that lingering, I think, skepticism of some people that is recycling really working? And I think I've always been of the belief that if we can start to build out those pathways and show that this material is being incorporated as recycled content, it will help dispel those myths that recycling isn't effective, because we know that it's working. We know that material is being recycled, but it's not always easy for the consumer to understand that.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so critical to focus on promotion and education and providing information sessions for the public or community members in our case, to make sure people are aware that the changes, the transition's happening, and there's a reason for it. It's producing benefit. Being able to explain that to people is something that we're targeting.
Absolutely. And Sebastian, what about you? What are the opportunities you see for the future of EPR and recycling in your community?
Yeah, similar to Daniel, I think there would be a big opportunity to expand this program, and that would have to be led by the province essentially to also include the commercial sector, understanding that represents a big waste stream. I think that would be a key way to improve this as an overall program. But yeah, EPR is strong. It's proven strong in multiple different programs. So I think additional types of programs could definitely benefit the region.
And for both of you, and you get started, Sebastian, how much do you think things like moving, ultimately applying the circular materials as we move to a uniform material list, how much do you think that will help unlock just greater participation and maybe ease some consumer confusion about what can be recycled or not recycled in your blue box? Sebastian?
I think that's key. We know that people come from one place of the province to go to their cottage in the summer, and then all of a sudden it's a completely different program, or it has been. So I think just eliminating some of that confusion, it's going to improve participation, reduce contamination. It's also going to help streamline the education and public outreach efforts, because it will be the same material across the province. So I think from an economies of scale perspective, it's just going to lead to more efficient program delivery.
And Daniel, how about for you? Like, I think for the First Nations, probably equally lots of benefits if we can move to something that's more simple and more standardized.
Yeah, I really think that the point Sebastian closed with, making the education and promotion more consistent across the whole province, is going to be a big benefit. Not having some communities have certain waste management initiatives in place, and then other communities, they could be pretty nearby. It depends on where the border between the regions is located. They could have a totally different system. And like we've said, there are multiple stewardship programs that are managed by different groups. So to bring those together and make a universal material list of what can be recycled is going to simplify things for the people at the household level who want to recycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of you made the point. However we can simplify it and have consistent messaging for consumers and residents, it's something that I think everyone's struggled with in the past. And if we can, address that and kind of unlock that ability to have more simplified messaging, I think it's great for everyone. Maybe just before we get to closing, one of the things I wanted to ask, you've probably worked with other stewardship programs in the past. You probably had some thoughts about how it would work. How have you found the relationship in terms of working with circular materials? Was it what you expected? Was it different? Because it's certainly in paper and packaging, it's a more integrated relationship with partners like you than it would be in other programs. But maybe Daniel, just starting with you, how have you found the experience so far? And how did it compare to your expectations going in?
It's been very positive. Collaborating with circular materials to date has been a mutually beneficial relationship, I think, for both parties. We get to have information brought directly to our communities, directly to our community members from the source, so there's no confusion. We have a great relationship in terms of collaborating on education. And I think that the benefit goes both ways, knowing that we can get the messaging out and include First Nations in this transition. It's not every day that recycling programs change at the provincial level. So being engaged in this transition period is a great opportunity to make sure that our communities have their voices heard in the design of the future of recycling in New Brunswick.
And Sebastian, how about you? How's the experience compared to maybe what you expected going in?
I think obviously this program with you as Circular Materials being the pro, it's a very different scope in compared to other APRs and stewardship in terms of the magnitude of the program. So very early on, just working throughout the Department of Environment and Recycling New Brunswick, we understood that this program is much bigger than other programs. And then working with the local team for Circular Materials Atlantic, it's all about making those connections and building that personal relationship. And we've always had good discussions with the local team here.
Yeah, and a shout out to the local team, Andrew, Nadine, Marcel. I think they've all from the beginning been super great to work with. And I think they've been really focused on, establishing strong relationships with the communities. And I think, hearing that, it's great to get that feedback. And I think as we go forward, I think it'll be great to find ways to help leverage your experiences as we go out and talk to other communities. Because I think what you're talking about is what we've kind of been targeting from the beginning. Can we have, strong relationships with the communities who want to continue to participate and provide service to the program or provide service to the residents and do it in a way where both parties are benefiting? Because I think at the end of the day, we've got a lot of shared interests. I think for First Nations and municipalities, they want to see more material diverted from landfill. They want to see streamlined communication for the residents. So I think there's a strong mutual benefit. And it'll be great to take those learnings. And, Daniel, in particular, First Nations, I think as we go forward, I don't think we're going to have necessarily the same level of success that we've had in New Brunswick and having every community come on board. And it'll be great to be able to continue to work with you and others in New Brunswick to leverage the experience you've had as we communicate to other First Nations across the country. Because the First Nations are, a key part of this program, and really for us, one of the opportunities to really prove out just how successful the program is. Because I think in the past, there's been unequal or inconsistent delivery to First Nations. And I think the opportunity going forward is really address it starting in places like New Brunswick on a jurisdictional or provincial basis, but really in the future on a national basis to have a harmonized approach for recycling for all First Nations across the country. That brings us to the conclusion for this episode of the Circular Exchange. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for tuning in. Together, we're building a more circular future, one conversation at a time. To learn more, visit circularmaterials.ca or check out the links in our show notes. We'll see you next time.